So I'm sure you've heard of decentering men when it comes to relationships, but what about when it comes to movies? When I think of decentering men type of movies, I'm referring to movies where there may be a romance in the movie, but it's just a subplot. It's not really important to the overarching theme of the movie. The movie mostly just focuses on female or women's issues, or the movie could be basically focusing on ways that men try to get over on women, how men try to exploit women, those type of themes. So that type of movie is what I would consider a decentering men type of movie or those type of movies. So I am going to do a part one. So part one is more lighthearted movies, and part two will deal with heavier themes. First movie is The Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants. So it has a similar structure, I would say, to Waiting to Excel, where there are four besties who work through their struggles separately and come back together to support each other. But for me personally, with Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants, it's not heavy on the romance. And I know you're going to argue with that, but let me explain. So we have Carmen, Lena, Tibby, and Bridget who are in high school and their summer break just started. So they're all going to be doing something different for the summer and spending time away from each other. So Carmen is more so the level-headed and mature friend and is going to visit her dad for the summer, who she hasn't seen since he walked out on her and her mom when she was just a little kid. Then we have Lena, who is shy and cautious, and she's going to be visiting her extended family in Greece. I believe it's for the first time that she's going to be visiting Greece. And then Tibby, who has the angsty, emo teenager aesthetic on lock, is going to be staying home to work at a summer job at a grocery store. And then Bridget is the more outgoing and spunky friend. She will be in Mexico for soccer camp. So before they all head off on their summer adventures, they spend one last day together. They go to a clothing store and they all try on a pair of jeans that fits them all. This feels like a magical pair of pants because they all are of varying heights and sizes. They decide to share the pair of jeans all summer by having them for a set amount of time and then mailing them to the next girl. If you watch this movie, I know you're going to say that this movie does, in fact, focus on romance, but I will have to say that I disagree. So, first, two of the storylines have absolutely nothing to do with romance. And with the other two storylines, the romance isn't the points. So, let's start with the two storylines that have nothing to do with romance at all. So Carmen leaves to go spend time with her dad, and she thinks that it'll just be them two. But when they pull up to the house, she discovers that he got remarried. Not only did he get remarried, but his wife looks like a Stepford wife, and then his stepkids are basically teenage versions of Barbie and Kim. So this is pretty jarring for Carmen because she doesn't feel like she fits into this sterile, perfect suburban family. And this point is made pretty clear with a seemingly small comment when she exclaims to her mother over the phone that the water in the toilet is blue. Like, these people are doing way too much. They're just too stiff and sterile. And yeah, there's no color, there's no fun. It's just stiff. Now, her dad is absolutely trash for not telling her that she got remarried until they pull up to the house. That is actually crazy. And then on top of that, who is this man? Because we see that Carmen and her mother have a lively and colorful home, so her dad must have fit in perfectly when he was with them. So Carmen has to come to terms with this new man and this new life he has made for himself. She finally has a conversation and confronts him about why he left, demanding an answer. And this is after she had left frustrated with the situation. So she was back home and was encouraged by Tibby and possibly the magical pants to call him and confront him. So she feels like he traded her mom in for what he thought was a better family, and she feels that he may be ashamed of her. All he can say that is that he's sorry, and she tells him that it's not enough because it's not enough. And in that moment, I think she realizes that it's him that's not enough, not her. It has nothing to do with her. It doesn't, how he treated her and abandoned her has nothing to do with her value. She has value no matter what. It's not based off of how her dad treated her and what he thought about the family. So her value does not need to be validated by some loser father, basically. And then we have Tibby. So Tibby is living her angsty, closed off teenager life, begrudgingly working a shift at a grocery store when she discovers a little girl passed out in one of the aisles. So she calls an ambulance for her and then later discovers that the little girl Bailey is her neighbor when she comes by her house because the traveling pants were delivered to her house by mistake. Bailey's house, obviously. So Tibby starts to soften up to Bailey and then they develop a friendship. She then discovers that Bailey's sick and Bailey passes away from her illness, which is so freaking sad. When I was watching this, like when you first watch it, it's like you literally don't really expect it, even though when you first meet Bailey, she's like passed out in the aisle. But I don't know. I guess Bailey was just so kind of had this spark to her and she was so full of life. You just did not expect that to happen to her. But I do believe that Bailey came into Tibby's life to show her that she doesn't have to have such a hard shell and she should enjoy life and all the small things that it has to offer because your life can be taken at any moment and some people won't have as much time as you have, so you should cherish it. And that's literally what Bailey shows her. She has such a short amount of time on this earth, but she cherished every moment of it and she made the best of it. Now, as far as the romantic storylines, yes, Lena met a guy in Greece, but this was only to get her out of her shell and to show her that she needs to live a little and stop being so cautious. And then with Bridget, she lost her mom not too long ago, and she used her crush on the soccer coach to take a break from the grief. She did end up sleeping with him, but as we saw, when she made that ultimate decision, it just left her feeling empty. So I feel like the whole process and lead up to her sleeping with him was just kind of like to get her mind off of that grief. So it was just a temporary way to get her mind off of losing her mom because in the end, she would have to deal with her grief head on. Like, you can do whatever you want to try to avoid those feelings, but at some point, it's gonna come to a head and you're gonna have to deal with it. I don't think that the pants were magical in the way that they think they were. They hope that the pants will give them courage and confidence, but I think that the pants were just a metaphor. Our teenage years are a time in our life where we are transitioning from being children to adults. So during that time frame, we may learn some tough life lessons and we have to find the strength and confidence to deal with them. And that is literally where it starts, like at that age. You have those kind of growing pains. So you have to kind of learn to deal with them and how to develop like that emotional maturity to deal with those type of things. And then we can take that strength and confidence that we develop or we start to develop with us into adulthood because we will need it. No magical pants required. So the second movie is, of course, I'm sure everyone's seen it, Mean Girls. Like Mean Girls is my preferred classic movie about toxic female friendships, or what we would call it back in the day, frenemies. So it's in the same category as like Jawbreaker and Heathers, but not quite as dark. So we have Cady, who basically lived most of her childhood like Eliza from the Wild Thornberrys, when her parents decide to return to the US for her 11th grade year. She's clueless about the social dynamics of high school and is quickly befriended and brought up to speed by Janice and Damien. So Janice and Damien come across as sort of outcasts, but they are still familiar with the different social groups and social structure of high school. And one of those groups being the most popular girls in 11th grade, who they call the Plastics. So one day, leader of the group, Regina George, invites Kay to sit with them at the lunch table. Janice encourages this so she can get intel on the Plastics since she hates Regina George for spreading a rumor that she was a lesbian. Katie thinks that Regina is pretty nice until Cady unknowingly develops a crush on Regina's ex, Aaron. Regina finds out about this during this pretty shady three-way call. Wait, is that I don't know if that was three-way call. Anyway, Regina finds out about this, but she tells Cady that's totally fine if she likes him. It doesn't bother her. However, Cady discovers that Regina is a lying, backstabbing piece of work when she sees her making out with Aaron at a Halloween party. And then on top of that, Regina starts dating Aaron again. This is when Cady, Janice, and Damien concoct a plan to knock Regina George off of her throne. And this obviously has nothing to do with Aaron Samuels, to the point where I didn't even remember his name in the movie. I had to look it up because he is so unimportant to the plot. Like he is not he's not the point. It's the principle of the matter. So Regina specifically got back with Aaron only because she knew that Cady liked him. So in my opinion, she initially befriended Cady because she thought that she was a pretty shiny new object at school, and Regina did not want Cady taking attention away from her. Regina thought that it would be more advantageous to have her become a part of her group and get her under her thumb. She would always have control and influence over Cady, especially since Cady was just learning about the ways of high school. Regina would have never known about Cady's crush if she had not become a part of her group and could have easily popped up on Aaron's arm one day, taking what had once belonged to Regina. So in a sense, Regina's plan worked, but it only shows how insecure she really is because she needs everyone to worship her, to feel like she has value, and she's scared of losing her spot. So even though her plan worked initially, it did indeed backfire because she didn't expect Cady to have the nerve to get her get back. But of course, Regina had the last laugh because she has been playing the petty, passive-aggressive, toxic queen bee since middle school. So in the end, of course, they all have a kumbaya session in the gym, but we all know that's not how it would really go in real life, okay? That is not how it would go in real life. Okay, so number 3 is Bring It On, okay? So Bring It On is one of the girliest movies ever, and I absolutely love it for that. So you have Torrance, who was recently chosen to be the captain of the cheerleading team since the old captain just graduated. I believe her name was Big Red, or they called her Big Red. She's now tasked with getting the team ready for nationals and winning for the 6th consecutive time. Unfortunately for Torrance, one of the girls injured themselves at her first practice, and she is having to find a replacement for her. So they hold tryouts and decide to go with Missy, who isn't really the stereotypical perky cheerleader type, but she did do gymnastics, and she is new at the school. Missy sits in on one of their practices and watches them perform their routine for the nationals. She accuses Torrance of stealing their routine, and Torrance has no idea what she's talking about. So Missy takes her to East Compton, where they watch the Clovers perform the same exact routine with quite a bit more rhythm. Just saying. Torrance is horrified at learning that her high school cheer career has been a lie. As they leave, they are confronted by the team captain, Isis, and a few of the teammates from the Clovers. She reveals that the old captain would show up with a video camera to record the routines and pass them off as her own. But Isis lets them know that they are going to be going to nationals for the first time and they will be winning that title. Now, Torrance has to deal with another hiccup in their plans for nationals, coming up with a completely new routine. They decide to hire a choreographer who is very strict and no nonsense to help them come up with a new routine. Unfortunately, at regionals, another team performed the exact same routine that Sparky taught them. That's the choreographer. And they're forced to go on after them, making a complete fool of themselves. So after being embarrassed and put to shame by the judges and the crowd of people, Torrance is then ridiculed by Big Red. She truly has a lot of nerve because she's the one who put Torrance in this mess. So Torrance does finally realize that she became the captain for a reason and draws inspiration from different dance and music genres to come up with a new routine. So she had to learn to trust herself and her abilities as a captain and also have the confidence to lead and make decisions. So they do go to nationals with the Clovers at their top competition and ultimately win second place, with the Clovers winning the top spot, as they should. After winning their titles, Isis and Torrance show good sportsmanship and commend each other on how well they both did. The movie is pretty lighthearted and fun on the surface, but there are some pretty deep themes that were cleverly inserted. So, of course, like I said before, like with Torrance, she had to learn how to trust herself and trust that she was capable of making those decisions and to lead a team, which would take her pretty far in life, honestly. And I think that's pretty much the reason why, like, the purpose of sports in high school. It just teaches you some valuable lessons. And then we have Big Red, who stole the cheer routines from a predominantly black cheer team from the inner city. And I'm sure she thought she could get away with it because they may never have the funds to get to nationals. She could have also thought no one would even care because of who she stole those routines from. Okay, you know what I'm talking about. And I'm not going to even get into depth about certain groups that have stolen from others and tried to play it off like they were the originators. And I love how there was a moment in the movie where the Clovers were at risk of not going to the nationals due to not having raised enough funds. Torrance finds out about it and she wants to help them because, of course, she had to compete with the best. But the movie doesn't let her be the white savior. And honestly, this is pretty forward thinking for a movie that was made in the year 2000. So there are too many movies where there just has to be a white savior as the lead in a black person story. The Help. But Isis told her to get out of their business and get ready to get beat at the nationals, okay? And that's exactly what happens. So for this one, of course, there was a romance subplot, but I feel like every movie genre has a romance subplot, like even superhero movies. This movie could have taken out the love interest and it would have been the same movie, but I do like the cheating boyfriend angle. I It did add to the drama and made the story more juicy. And am I the only one who thought that her boyfriend was going to be in bed with the dude? I was surprised it was a woman. Okay, so number 4 is Bridesmaids. So Bridesmaids is an interesting one because the title would make you think that the movie is about a wedding, but it's absolutely not about a wedding. It's about the bridesmaids, the girl, the friends, friendship groups. So yeah, when you think about it, your bridesmaids are the women who are the closest to you, the women who you want to show up for you and be present during the most important moments of your life. In Bridesmaids, the wedding really is just a backdrop or even just a setting for the movie. Essentially, Bridesmaids is about friendship, jealousy, feeling behind in life, and learning to take responsibilities for your choices. So we have Annie. She's a young woman barely making ends meet, working as a sales associate in a jewelry store. She's also living with obnoxious roommates and driving a car that's on its last leg. Previously, she owned a bakery that she had to close, and I can only assume that had to do a number on her confidence. On top of all that, she's involved in a benefits, no friends situation with this loser named Todd. And why is John Hamm always playing characters I can't stand? He's a loser in Bridesmaids, a jerk in Mad Men, and a cult leader in The Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt. But I still love him though. So then Annie finds out that her best friend is getting married and she asks Annie to be her maid of honor. Annie accepts and she's introduced to the other bridesmaids. Helen, in particular, grabbed her attention because she's well off, sophisticated, and obviously trying to take Annie's spot as bestie. Of course, Annie is jealous of this new friendship and they are both constantly trying to one up each other. Unfortunately, Annie stays losing because she subconsciously sabotages Lillian's wedding event at every turn, suggesting a restaurant that gives everyone the runs at the bridal shop, getting everyone kicked off the plane on their way to Vegas, and having the crash out to end all crash outs at the bridal shower. During all this, Annie's life continues to fall apart by her losing her job, having to move back in with her mom, and she gets rear-ended on her way home from the bridal shower. This is all her fault, by the way. She met the cop that she had been talking to initially because he had pulled her over for her taillights being out. So now she gets rear-ended. She never fixed her taillights being out. Now he's the responding officer at the scene of the crash, and he lets her know that the accident is indeed her fault because she hasn't got her taillight fixed. Annie has officially hit rock bottom and is wallowing in self-pity when Megan comes to pay her a visit. So Megan is one of the bridesmaids, right? So she tells her about what she has overcome in the past, like bullying and just all these difficult times that she's had to overcome, and lets Annie know that she needs to take action in her own life because that is the only way she was able to move past all those difficult times in her life is she had to take responsibility for her own life and take action in her own life. So Annie takes those words and she does just that by getting her car fixed, renewing her passion for baking, and showing up for Lillian at her wedding. She also drops Ted and bakes Officer Rhodes a cake as an apology, even though a pack of raccoons devoured it. But I'm okay with the raccoons eating it, you know. I mean, he saw the cake was there. He got it. He didn't take it, but he got the point. So even though this movie was a comedy, I feel like it's so relatable. So we all have been at points in our lives where we have either hit rock bottom, everything feels like it's going wrong, or we feel like we're behind in life. I do think those are normal experiences to have in life. And I also think it's normal to feel sorry for yourself or to blame other people or other things for what's going wrong in your life. Granted, everything isn't your fault, but let's be honest, you can take control of your life and make those changes. So at some point, you do have to realize that your life looks like it does right now because of decisions you made in the past. But when you take responsibility for your life, then you are giving yourself the power to change it and make things better. Yes, Helen tried to sabotage Annie by giving her that pill on the plane and encouraging her to drink alcohol with it. But Annie, why would you, a grown ass woman, take a pill from a woman you barely know and don't even like and mix the pill on top of that with alcohol? That was all Annie, okay? But in the end, Annie does realize the error of her ways. So, number 5 is a good segue into part 2 because it does deal with some heavier topics, but it's kind of like a comedy. I am so mad that the first time I watched Jennifer's Body was last year, and I'm even more mad that they tried to convince us that Megan Fox was not that girl. She was. This movie is nothing without Megan Fox, and she absolutely delivers. So, Jennifer's Body uses satire to give commentary on the exploitation of women and girls, as well as toxic female friendships. So, Jennifer and Needy have been best friends since elementary school, but now as high school students, it's hard to see what they really have in common. Needy comes across as nerdy and mousy, while Jennifer is the type that all the guys want in school, and she knows it. It's very clear that Jennifer needs to assert control over Needy and likes to be the friend who has all the attention on her. She's also very selfish and wants Needy to be at her beck and call. You see this when she playfully and aggressively pushes Needy into a door and jokingly accuses Needy and her boyfriend of being intimate with each other due to the spell in the room. Like, how crass can you be? That would have pissed me off, seriously. Needy seems to value the fact that they have been best friends for so long that seems to be the only thing going for their friendship. So one night, Jennifer gets Needy to go with her to see an indie band named Low Shoulder at the local bar. I don't get it. Low shoulder? What does that mean? Okay. The bar somehow catches fire and Jennifer leaves Needy in the parking lot to go with the band as the bar is still in flames. How are you going to leave your best friend? I'm sorry, that part was crazy. Like, you're not gonna make sure she get hung safely. Like, there is literally a fire blazing behind her. You take off some dudes. That's crazy. The guys in the band were looking for a virgin to sacrifice because they think this will give them fame and fortune. Unbeknownst to them, Jennifer isn't a virgin. but they sacrifice her anyway, thinking that she really is. The sacrifice still works for the band, but turns Jennifer into a type of succubus. And I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. I didn't check before this video. So, succubus. Hopefully it's right. From what I could gather, a succubus is a female demon that is intimate with men while they're sleeping, draining them of their energy. Over time, this weakens the man and can eventually cause him to go to sleep permanently. Jennifer does not visit these guys in their sleep, but she rips them to shreds while they are wide awake. So these violent acts causes her to be glowing and the most beautiful that she has ever been. But if she goes too long without devouring a guy, her energy is low, her skin looks dull, and her hair is flat and lifeless. So basically, eating men gives her a literal glow up. This feels almost like an Uno reverse, though. So, have you ever heard that a man being intimate with a woman is like a plug being inserted into a socket? So, when a plug is inserted into a socket, it is using the electricity as energy to power whatever appliance is attached to or whatever is attached to. So, Low Shoulder needed to drain Jennifer of her energy as a female virgin in order to bring their stalled music careers to life, to power their career, to energize their career. But since she wasn't a virgin, this turned her into a type of demon to destroy would try to destroy her. Symbolic for dismantling and destroying our patriarchal society, perhaps? But Jennifer takes things a step too far by going after Needy's boyfriend, Chip, at a school dance. She lures him into an abandoned pool and tries to eat him, but Needy comes to his rescue. And I'm wondering, why is she trying to save this boy who's about to fiddle with her best friend? Like, make it make sense. Further showing that her supposed best friend needs to have all the attention on her and doesn't want Needy to have anything for herself. And also taking up for men who don't deserve it will ruin your life. So honestly, I feel like the real lessons to learn from comes from Needy. First, do not become a victim of the sunk cost fallacy. Having a friend, boyfriend, or husband for a certain number of years does not equate to a quality relationship. Do they meet your standards for this particular relationship? Do they value as a person in this relationship? Have they shown up for you when you needed them? I can't say any of those things were true for Jennifer when it came to Needy. If she would have dropped Jennifer as a friend sooner, she would have never gotten involved in her mess. And why does she think that she should have been the one to cater those boys and end Jennifer's life? As crappy of a friend that Jennifer was, she was never a threat to Needy until she flew in to try to save Chip. She should have minded her business and kept it moving. But nope, she ended up in prison. So that ends part 1 in movies that decenter men and focus on women's issues, women's relationships with friends, things like that. So part 2, like I said, is gonna deal with more heavier topics, or just be more movies that are heavier. And yeah, so what do you think about part 1 of my movies? Do you agree that these movies don't really focus on romance and focus on women and girls and what they go through, or basically how men can kind of exploit them when it comes to, like, I would say Jennifer's body at the very least? So let me know what you thought about this video, and thank you so much for watching. That's all I have for today. Bye.